Hello students, I am Raghavan Kumar Singh, faculty of US Academy and Institute. Today we will discuss class 9th Civics 4 chapter Working of Institution. In this chapter we will discuss how peoples elect their representatives as the government. However, democracy is not just about peoples electing their rulers. We will discuss about the rulers that have to follow some rulers and procedures and within the institution, and also the working of an institution, which begins with the manner in which major decisions are taken and implemented in our country. As we have already studied about these institutions in earlier classes, we will find the answers of various questions which often come to our mind, such as what do these institutions do, how are these institutions connected, and what makes their functions more or less democratic. So let us discuss the chapter how is a major policy decision takes place. A government order on 13th August 1990. The Government of India issued an order which was called an office memorandum. The order says that other than SC and ST, the 27% job reservation benefit will be given to a new third category called socially and educationally backward classes, which is also called as SEBC. Only persons who belongs to backward classes were eligible for this quota. The decision makers who decided to issue this memorandum, such a major decision would have involved other major functions in India, which involves the functions on following points. These points are: the President is the head of the state and is the highest formal authority in India. The Prime Minister is the head of the government and takes most of the decisions in the cabinet meeting. Parliament consists of the President and two houses, Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. The Prime Minister must have the support of a majority of Lok Sabha members to pass a memorandum. When the office memorandum was passed in India, it was a hot debate issue. Some felt that this was unfair as it would deny equality of opportunity to those who did not belong to backward communities, while others felt that this would give a fair opportunity to those communities who so far had not adequately been represented in government employment. This dispute was finally resolved by the Supreme Court of India by hearing all the cases. This case was known as the Indira Sawhney and others versus Union of India case. The Supreme Court judge in 1992 declared that this order of the Government of India was valid. Thus, the dispute came to an end, and this policy has been followed since then. Need for political institution. Several arrangements are made in modern democracies, which are called institutions. Democracy works well when these institutions perform function assigned to them. Institution involves meeting, committees and routines. This often leads to delay and complications. Some of the delay and complications introduced by institutions are very useful as they provide opportunity for a wider set of peoples to be consulted. Institution makes it difficult to have a good decision taken very quickly, but they also make it equally difficult to rush through a bad decision. Parliament decisions are not directly taken in Parliament, but parliamentary discussions on the report influence and shape the decisions of the government. These discussions brings pressure on the government to act. If Parliament is not in favor of the decision, then the government cannot go ahead and cannot implement the decisions. Why do we need Parliament? An assembly of elected representatives is called Parliament, which exercise supreme political authorities on behalf of the peoples. At the state level, this is called the legislature or legislative assembly. The name may vary in different countries, but such an assembly exists in every democracy. Parliament exercises political authorities on behalf of the peoples in many ways, such as Parliament is the final authority for making laws in any country. Those who run the government can take decisions only when they get the support of Parliament. Parliament control all the money that government have. Parliament is the highest forum of discussion and debate on public issues and national policy in any country. Now, two houses of Parliament. Most large countries divide the role and power of Parliament into two parts, which are called chambers of houses. One house is usually directly elected by the peoples and exercises the real power on behalf of the peoples. The second house is usually elected indirectly and performs some special functions. The most common work for the second house is to look after the interest of various states, regions, or federal units. In India, Parliament consists of two houses. The two houses are known as the Council of States, means the Rajya Sabha, and the House of the Peoples, means Lok Sabha. The President of India is a part of Parliament, though he is not a member of either house. All laws made in the house come into force only after receiving the assent of the President. Indian Constitution does not give the Rajya Sabha some special powers over the states, but on most matters, the Lok Sabha exercises supreme power. Here are some points that illustrate this. An ordinary law to be passed by both the houses, but if there is a difference between the two houses, the final decision is taken in a point or a joint session in which members of both the houses sit together. The view of the Lok Sabha is likely to prevail in such a meeting, since there are many members of the Lok Sabha. Lok Sabha exercises more powers in money matters. Lok Sabha controls the Council of Ministers, that are political executives. At different level of any government, functionaries take day-to-day decisions but do not exercise supreme power on behalf of the peoples. All these functionaries are collectively known as executive. This executive in charge of the execution of the policies of the government. Thus, when we talk about the government, we usually mean the executives. Now, political and permanent executives. In a democratic country, two categories make up the executive. One that is elected by the people for a specific period is called the political executive. Political leaders who take big decisions fall in this category. Peoples who are appointed on a long term basis are called the permanent executives or civil services. People working in civil services are called civil servants. They remain in office even when the ruling party changes. These officers work under political executives and assist them in carrying out the day-to-day administration. Why is the minister more powerful than the civil servant? In a democracy, the will of the peoples is supreme. The minister is an elected representative of the peoples and thus empowered to exercise the will of the peoples on their behalf. Minister is finally answerable to the peoples for all the consequences of his or her decision. That is why the ministers take all the final decisions. The minister is not and is not expected to be an expert in the matters of her ministry. The minister takes the advice of experts on all technical matters and then take the decisions. Now, the Prime Minister and Council of Ministers. As we know, there is no direct elections to the post of the Prime Minister. The President appoints the Prime Minister. The President appoints the leaders of the majority party on the coalition of parties that commands a majority in the Lok Sabha as Prime Minister. In case no single party or alliance gets a majority, the President appoints the peoples most likely to secure majority support. The Prime Minister does not have a fixed tenure. He continues in power so long as he remains the leader of the majority party or coalition party. After the appointment of the Prime Minister, the President appoints other ministers on the advice of the Prime Minister, which are usually from the majority party or the coalition party that has the majority in the Lok Sabha. The Prime Minister is free to choose ministers as long as they are members of Parliament. A person who is not a member of Parliament can also become a minister, but such a person has to get elected to one of the houses of Parliament within 6 months of appointment as minister. The Council of Ministers is the official name for the body that includes all the ministers. It usually has 60 to 80 ministers of different ranks as mentioned below, such as cabinet minister, who are usually top level leaders of the ruling party or parties who are in charge of the major ministries. The cabinet is the inner ring of the Council of Ministers and comprises about 25 ministers of states with independent charge are usually in charge of small ministers. They participate in the cabinet meetings only when especially invited. Ministers of the states are the junior minister who are assigned to assist cabinet ministers and the ministers of the state with independent charge. Parliamentary democracy in most countries is often known as the cabinet form of government because most of the decisions are taken in cabinet meetings. Every minister has secretaries who are civil servants. The secretaries provide the necessary background information to the ministers to take decisions. The cabinet as a team is assisted by the cabinet secretaries. Now, the powers of the Prime Minister. As head of the government, the Prime Minister has wide-ranging powers who are mentioned. The Prime Minister chairs cabinet meeting. He is the head of the government. He coordinates the works of different departments. His decisions are final in case disagreements arise between departments. He exercises general supervision of different ministers. All ministers work under his leadership. The Prime Minister distributed and redistributes works to the ministers. He has the power to dismiss minister also. When the Prime Minister quits, the entire ministry quits. Now about the President. The President is the head of the state. The President supervises the overall function of all the political institutions in India so that they operate in harmony to achieve the objectives of the states. Elections of the President is not conducted directly by the peoples. The President is not elected directly by the peoples. A candidate standing for President post has to get a majority of votes from members of parliament and the members of legislative assemblies to win the elections. Powers of President is in all government activities takes place in the name of the President. All laws and major policy decisions of the government are issued in the name of the President. All major appointments are made in the name of the President, which include the appointments of the Chief Justice of India, the judges of the Supreme Court and the High Court of the states, the governors of the state, the election commissioner, ambassador to other countries, etc. All international treaties and agreements are made in the name of the President. The President is the supreme commander of the Defence Force of India. The President exercises all these powers only on the advice of the Council of Ministers. The President can only appoint the Prime Minister by his or her own will. Now the Judiciary. All the courts of different levels in a country put together are called the Judiciary. The Indian Judiciary consists of a Supreme Court for the entire nation, high courts in the state, district courts in the districts. The courts of local level, India has an integrated judiciary, which means the Supreme Court control the judicial administration in the country. Its decisions are binding on all other courts of the country. It can take up any dispute, just like the between citizens of the country, between citizens and government, between two or more states governments, between government at the union level and the state level. Independence of the judiciary means that it is not under the control of the legislature or the executives. The judges do not act on the direction of the government or according to the wishes of the party in power. The judge of the Supreme Court and the High Court are appointed by the President on the advice of the Prime Minister and in consultation with the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. Once a person is appointed as judge of the Supreme Court or the High Court, it is nearly impossible to remove him or her from that position. A judge can be removed only by an impeachment motion passed separately by two-thirds members of the two houses of the Parliament. Now the power of judiciary. The judiciary in India is one of the most powerful in the world. The Supreme Court and the High Court has the power to interpret the constitution of the country. They can determine the constitutional validity of any legislation or actions of the executives in the country when it is challenged before them. This is known as the judicial review. The Supreme Court of India has also ruled that the core or basic principles of the Constitution cannot be changed by the Parliament. The power and the independence of the Indian judiciary allows it to act as the guardians of the fundamental rights. Anyone can approach the court if public interest is hurt by the actions of the government. This is called the public interest litigation.